You know you can always count on Diamond when you need a Nooksu cow. Here's your look at Diamond Select JCVD World Tournament PVC Diorama Statue. Born Jean-Claude Camille Francois van Verenberg in Belgium, Jean-Claude Van Damme began studying karate at the age of 10, earning his black belt at 18 and joining the Belgium national team. He also studied ballet and lifted weights, eventually earning the bodybuilding title Mr. Belgium. He competed in full contact karate till 1982, when he moved to the United States to become an actor. After a few background parts and a villainous leading role, he began a series of starring roles that cemented him as a leading man. He has also written and directed films. This tournament gallery diorama of Jean-Claude Van Damme is made of high-quality PVC and features detailed sculpting and paint applications. While Van Damme prepares for the Muay Thai, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the brand new Jean-Claude Van Damme tournament PVC diorama statue stands. While I'm doing this as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that did provide this sample we could have a look at. The statue, though, is going to stand at about 8.5 inches in height, or this version of Jean-Claude is 21.5 centimeters tall. Marking now the second JCVD statue we've looked at from Diamond, I'm going to slide over the tournament version of Jean-Claude. We're going to bring in, though, the original PVC Jean-Claude Van Damme statue. Now, while they don't necessarily have connecting titles to movies, you can kind of get, though, the suggested idea of what movies these characters are supposed to be from. This version of Jean-Claude clearly looks more inspired by Bloodsport, while this one here, though, looks more heavily influenced by Kickboxer. Despite not being directly linked to those films, one thing, though, that Diamond has done really well with both statue releases is given a very intricate-looking diorama that Jean-Claude Van Damme is standing on top of. While it was the case before where we had the gong bell for the tournament, this time, though, around, for the tournament, we actually get the version of Jean-Claude where he's got the stairwell and he's got the rope falling behind him. Picking, though, up the statue and getting a closer look at this right now. One thing I also really like is the fact they've got the little torch there onto the side. It's not even so little, but as you can see, it's been nicely done in illumination, using a translucency of both reds and yellows. I think it does always give a nice little effect. It gives certainly something more just to look at than the subject in front. Jean-Claude also, as you can see, looks to be on a kind of dirt flooring here. You've got some nice little stairwell steps there on the back, as well as, again, the fallen robe. The only thing I would say, though, as looking at this, is I feel maybe like the robe is a little too faded. I mean, looking, though, at the colors that they use, and they chose when they went with like blue and they went with the red, I feel like it's maybe almost like it looks like it's been bleached by the sun, as they probably could have maybe sharpened the colors, maybe made them just a little bit more vibrant than what they actually are. But, you know, again, it gives something more just to look at than just having the subject standing on top of just a regular circular stand. The base itself, by the way, though, is all hollow plastic, PVC plastic, but again, very nicely painted, both with the realistic-looking wood posts that they have here on the side, not to mention as well the way they've sculpted the concrete, all give a nice sense of realism to this. Jean-Claude, this whole time talking about the display stand, unfortunately you guys have been looking at this section of the character, but getting, though, a closer look at Jean-Claude Van Damme's face. While maybe not landing a perfect likeness on the character, on the actor, when it comes to their actual figure releases of Jean-Claude Van Damme so far, I think they've actually honestly done a better job when it comes to their statues. Though I would say, though, looking at JCVD's body here, I almost feel as if his body is maybe a little too muscular. He maybe should have had a slightly thinner frame than what we're actually getting here. But from a head sculpt standpoint, I think it actually does fairly bear a strong enough resemblance where you know exactly who the character is. I think it looks a little bit more like him from certain angles. Like if you're seeing it from the side like this, or you're even tilting it from like this way, I think it looks a little bit more like him than it does if you're looking at him straight forward. The paint, though, has been done well, I feel, like especially the areas around the eyes, the eyebrows there, for example. I think all in all, it's a nicely painted figure. But I feel like perhaps between the two, I don't know if this one is as good of a likeness to JCVD as the original, quote, Bloodsport version of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, in this case, if you were to say he's entering into the Muay Thai, he's actually got himself his wrapped-up bandaged gloves. In the movie, though, when he fights Tom Paul near the end, he would have dipped his hands, I think, is it in wax or honey, and he basically proceeds to dip them then into broken glass. So you've got yourself all these little fragments of glass on the ends of his knuckles. It's a very brutal fight. Of course, he also has down below not necessarily trunks, but somewhat something at least to hold everything in place, so to speak. Nicely been sculpted, as you can see as well. It's been painted, but it hasn't just been painted, though, this sort of light olive-colored green. There's a little bit of little nuances that they've also added there as well, some nice little browns. But again, like my only real takeaway, though, from this is, well, I do think it's a good-looking sculpture and statue of Jean-Claude. I think, if anything, maybe his torso is a little bit too big. I think they probably could have also really helped to lend a little bit of darker color to it. While it looks, I think, like from a skin tone standpoint, I think it does look pretty good. But I think, if anything, if I was just to put the statue back down, just grabbing the earlier one that we've already had a look at, I think the first one that they did, I think, gave us a better looking likeness to the actor. It also may have helped as well that maybe they had darkened the coloring of his skin, where it maybe allowed some of his facial features more to mimic the actor's likeness, where maybe like having this one a little bit more pale maybe doesn't do as much of a service to the actor. All in all, though, I do think that both statues, whether you decide to pick up only just this one or you decide to actually pick up both, the one thing I do like about, though, is even though it isn't necessarily connected to where on the box they wouldn't have been able to say necessarily this is Bloodsport, this is Kickboxer. I mean, again, if you are a fan, say, of JCVD and you've been watching his films over the years, you would then be able to look at the two and you'd be able to know exactly what movies they're from. I would imagine this is probably something that they're also going to do as well when it comes to future statues and future figures, not necessarily finger pointing directly in the direction of calling it a movie tied in character, but giving it at least enough of the suggested character traits that you'll know then looking at it which movie these statues belong from. Wrapping up now with a rotating Van Damme. This now marks the second PVC diorama statue the folks over at Diamond have put out for Van Damme, this one entitled Tournament. Even though, again, not called Kickboxer, probably they just didn't have the license to say it was a Kickboxer statue. Looking at it, though, just short of having Kung Paul on the opposite side, we already know what movie this is from. And I think for the most part, it's been a decently sculpted, well-painted statue of him. There are a few little things, like his frame maybe being a bit too muscular and large. There are also some things I didn't mention in this review that I'll mention up as we kind of wrap up the review, is that if you look at his arms and you look at his head, there is a very obvious seam line where it looks like the two didn't come out of the same casting. It looks like maybe the arms were added after the fact as well for the head. I don't know why they did that as a separate piece instead of not just casting all the things together. Maybe it had something to do with more the fragile nature of the molding, or maybe because they maybe want to use the body for something else and that they decided to sculpt the arms in different placements. Other than that, though, I think it's a nice rendition, though, of Van Damme. The colors maybe could have been just a tad bit darker. He's a little bit paler than he is in Bloodsport. But again, the fact that we get ourselves a Van Damme statue, one that has at least a really intricate looking diorama as well. So you've got the little torch off to the side. You've got the stairwell, the dropped off robe. Yeah, it's a nice looking statue. I think, though, I still like the first Van Damme statue we did get from Diamond Select. One, again, that's a little bit more connected, I feel, to Bloodsport. But if you are a big fan of Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'd like to think you're probably going to be collecting anything and everything that Diamond Select has been putting out. While maybe missing a mark a little bit on their original action figure of Van Damme, keeping in mind, again, like that's the first one that they've done for Van Damme. I'm sure it will only get progressively better. I think they have, though, been knocking out of the park when it comes to their PVC diorama statues. Is this one you guys could see yourselves picking up? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys already had the chance to pick up the original JCVD PVC diorama statue that Diamond has put out? What other movies would you like to see them put out statues inspired by? A Time Cop would be an amazing one, as well as maybe Hard Target. But again, you'd have to kind of tiptoe around using certain details and designs. But I think they could do it. Diamond's been doing a pretty good job so far on the statues of him. A big thank you once again to the folks over at Diamond Select that came through and provided the JCVD World, specifically, Tournament PVC diorama statue. We had the chance to have a look at this review. This statue, by the way, should be available right now, either in comic book stores or online. Again, if you're a big fan of Van Damme, you might want to be ordering this one right away. Also, as well, if you guys are interested and would like to stick around for more reviews, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure as well, hey, you're turning on the bell notification. And of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.